I'm sure that there's an expectation that many of the people currently in power in Europe and in the United Kingdom will be gone shortly, that there will be elections and new people will be swept into power. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily anticipated in Great Britain, but it certainly is in Germany and I suspect France and other countries. They are almost always nationalists, or certainly more nationalist in their thinking, which is not aggressive and offensive. It's a kind of nationalism that says we want to preserve our country. We want our own culture, our identity, our language. Those things need to be protected, and we want peace abroad. In other words, prosperity at home and peace abroad, which I think we all support. I certainly do, and I know the Russians do. That will work itself out. But the principal ice that's being broken is this hostility between Russia and the United States. For that, I think we should all be grateful. And from this point forward, we can move into a whole number of areas, not just resolving this tragedy on the ground in Ukraine, which frankly should never have happened. That's going to be resolved. But also we can get back to some useful discussions on nuclear weapons and nuclear capabilities. And I think Mr. Trump has already hinted at that. So all in all, this is good news.
And there you have it. A stunning revelation that could reshape global power dynamics. A future where European leadership is uprooted, nationalism rises, and the US and Russia forge a new security order. But is this a bold vision of diplomacy, or a dangerous gamble with the future of Europe? Macgregor paints a world on the edge of transformation, where European elites are swept aside, nationalism takes hold, and the hostility between Russia and the US dissolves into cooperation. He suggests Trump is the key to this seismic shift, despite the deep wounds of past insults. But beneath this vision lies an unsettling reality. If Europe is sidelined, who truly benefits from this new order? The geopolitical landscape surrounding Ukraine is shifting rapidly. As we just analyzed the controversial perspectives of Douglas Macgregor, it's clear that the global balance of power is at stake. Now let's move to the latest developments, where high-stakes negotiations are unfolding between world leaders. The focus is now on whether the United States will provide security guarantees to European nations as they consider deploying forces in Ukraine. This decision could determine the future of the war and, in many ways, the future of global stability itself. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, intense fighting continues, with Russian missile strikes devastating Ukrainian positions. But one of the most critical flashpoints emerging right now is the Sudzha region, where Ukraine is facing near collapse, and Russia is pressing for a decisive breakthrough. Let's break down what's happening. At this very moment, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Ireland, waiting for a critical phone call from US President Donald Trump. The world is watching anxiously as Ukraine's fate hangs in the balance. The key issue: security guarantees. The United Kingdom's Prime Minister has flown to Washington, engaging in difficult negotiations with Trump. His goal? Convincing Trump to provide formal security guarantees to European forces, including British and French troops, who are prepared to deploy in Ukraine as peacekeepers. But without US backing, this deployment would be risky, potentially triggering direct conflict with Russia. Zelensky has made it clear, without these guarantees, Ukraine cannot sustain its defense for much longer. Furthermore, he refuses to sign any ceasefire deal unless these guarantees are secured. This means there will be no presidential elections in Ukraine, and no Ukrainian financial concessions to the United States. Zelensky is holding his ground, demanding absolute commitment from the West. The outcome of these negotiations will define the next phase of the war. If security guarantees are given, the conflict will escalate into something far more serious, essentially Cold War II. France, the UK, and Ukraine will formally unite against Russia, with NATO's influence looming in the background. Western forces would establish a military presence along the front lines, potentially shifting the war's dynamics in Ukraine's favor. However, Russia has already responded with a firm rejection. Moscow has made it clear that it will never accept foreign troops operating in Ukraine, branding any such deployment as an act of war. Should NATO peacekeepers arrive, the conflict could spiral into a full-scale war between nuclear-armed states. As negotiations continue, Russia is not waiting idly by. Instead, the Kremlin is ramping up military pressure in multiple directions, seeking to weaken Ukraine's bargaining position ahead of a possible deal. While the political chess game unfolds, fierce fighting is raging in Sudzha, a key area near the Russia-Ukraine border. The Russians have launched relentless missile strikes and ground offensives, aiming to break Ukrainian defenses completely. One of the most significant developments has been Russia's successful targeting of Ukrainian military concentrations. Russian forces used Iskander missiles with cluster munitions to obliterate a gathering of Ukrainian FPV drone operators near Zaporizhia. Reports indicate that up to 100 Ukrainian servicemen were either killed or wounded in the strike. Similar attacks were launched in the northern sector, where Ukrainian troops were amassing for a potential counteroffensive. Intelligence gathered by Russian drones revealed a hidden Ukrainian military encampment, leading to another devastating missile strike. The result? The destruction of Ukrainian armored vehicles, ammunition stockpiles, and yet another group of drone operators. The loss of these specialized units is a major blow to Ukraine. FPV drone operators have played a critical role in Ukraine's ability to counter Russian advances, providing real-time battlefield intelligence and precision strikes on Russian targets. Their elimination significantly weakens Ukraine's strategic capabilities. But the strikes didn't stop there. The Russians have also targeted key command centers, aiming to paralyze Ukrainian leadership structures. Sloviansk. Russia launched a precision missile attack on the headquarters of Ukraine's 10th Mountain Assault Brigade. This brigade has been a cornerstone of Ukraine's defensive operations in Donbass, and its command structure has now been severely disrupted. Kramatorsk. Another strike took out the tactical command post of Ukraine's 81st Air Mobile Brigade. This brigade was responsible for protecting the northern sector, and its loss could expose major vulnerabilities in Ukraine's front lines. Kostiantynivka. Russian forces struck the command center of the Ukrainian 101st Brigade, which played a key role in defending strategic cities in Donetsk. These attacks are not random. They are a calculated effort by Russia to cripple Ukrainian command and control infrastructure ahead of a possible major offensive. The timing of these strikes is crucial. Russia is fully aware that tomorrow could bring a signed agreement between Trump and Zelensky. If such an agreement includes security guarantees and Western troop deployments, it would drastically change the war's course. To prevent this, Russia is accelerating its military campaign, attempting to create chaos and instability before any political decisions are finalized. If Russian forces can achieve a breakthrough, they might force Zelensky to abandon negotiations and return to Ukraine in crisis mode. All indications suggest that tonight will be one of the most intense nights of fighting in recent history. With multiple Ukrainian brigades already suffering devastating losses, Russia may attempt to launch a full-scale offensive in several directions. Sudza Front. Russian forces are expected to intensify their assault, aiming to capture key Ukrainian positions and potentially push further into northeastern Ukraine. Donetsk region. With the recent destruction of Ukrainian command centers, Russian troops may attempt to advance toward major urban centers like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Kharkiv offensive. Intelligence suggests that Russian forces are building up near Kharkiv, potentially preparing for a surprise push into the city. If Russia succeeds in making significant territorial gains, it could dramatically shift the power dynamics of the war. Moscow would then enter any future negotiations from a position of overwhelming strength. Whether or not Trump provides security guarantees, one thing is clear. We are already in a new Cold War. The battle lines are being drawn, with Russia on one side and the West on the other. The days of limited engagements and proxy warfare are fading. This is becoming an existential struggle for global dominance. As the night unfolds, Ukraine is at a crossroads, facing one of the most critical moments of this war. The battle in Sudzha is intensifying, with Russian forces pushing aggressively to gain a decisive advantage. Ukrainian troops, already stretched thin, are suffering heavy losses due to relentless missile strikes targeting their command centers, armored vehicles, and drone operators. The destruction of these critical assets is weakening Ukraine's ability to defend its positions, making it increasingly vulnerable to Russian advances. At the same time, high-stakes negotiations are underway behind closed doors. Zelensky is anxiously waiting in Ireland, hoping for a clear commitment from Trump and Western leaders. If security guarantees are granted, we could witness a dramatic escalation, potentially leading to NATO troops stepping into the conflict. This move would not only change the war's trajectory, but could also bring us dangerously close to direct confrontation between nuclear-armed superpowers. But the reality is that Russia is not waiting for negotiations to conclude. They are pushing forward aggressively, attempting to deliver a knockout blow before any Western intervention can take shape. With key Ukrainian brigades suffering devastating losses and command structures in disarray, Putin sees an opportunity to shift the war in his favor. If Ukraine's defenses collapse in Sudzha, it could trigger a domino effect, forcing retreat in other regions and putting major cities like Kharkiv and Sloviansk at risk. The coming hours and days will be critical. Will the West step up and provide the necessary support to Ukraine? Or will Russia succeed in its strategy of overwhelming Ukraine with superior firepower and relentless offensives? What happens next could define the future of Europe and the global balance of power for years to come. This war is not just about Ukraine. It's about the future of global security, the strength of alliances, and the survival of democracy in the face of authoritarian aggression. The situation is evolving rapidly, and every decision made now will have long-term consequences. Make sure to stay updated with the latest developments by subscribing to the channel, hit the like button if you found this analysis valuable, and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the West will commit to security guarantees? Will Ukraine hold the line in Sudzha, or is a breakthrough imminent? Let's discuss. And as always, stay tuned for the next update. We'll be covering every major development as it unfolds. See you in the next one.